All right, so we're getting ready to do the shock therapy dual rate springs on my Walker Evans shocks from the Polaris RZR Trail S. So I've got the rear shocks off the machine, and first thing I need to do is pull the stock springs off. You can see I powder coated these yellow, so I'm a little bit bummed I'm going to lose these nice powder coated yellow springs, but eventually I can pull the shock therapy ones back off the machine and powder coat them if I want to. I don't have time to powder coat them right now. I'm trying to get ready for the Northwest Rally Cross first event that's coming up next week on Saturday at Dirtfish in Issaquah. So I'm trying to get these springs on here so I can get a little bit stiffer suspension and hopefully not so much body roll on the machine. So first thing I'm gonna do is pull these stock springs off. Well, first thing you do, you gotta move this little rubber stopper thing down, and then we need to compress the spring and then just pull this little guy out. If you do this, make sure that you have a spring compressor tool. I wouldn't want to mess with this unless I had this tool. This is the Schwabin spring compressor. Looks like this right here. You know, I think it's a couple $100. This thing comes in handy quite a bit. I've used this a lot, but I certainly wouldn't be trying to do this unless I had this spring compressor. Okay, so compress the spring, pull this guy out right here, decompress the spring, and this will come right off. Boom. Stock spring is off. Just like that. Lots of blood today, bleeding again. I guess the third time I stabbed myself today with something and started bleeding. You know, that's just how it goes when you're wrenching. Just wrenching away, being a real mechanic. You know, you just get beat up. All right, so here is the shock therapy dual rate spring kit. You've got a upper spring and a lower spring on each shock, and then a bunch of different odds and ends here. They're going to be used to install them. All right, so basically I am working on setting the preload measurements and then the crossover measurements. They've got a good YouTube video on their website for kind of how to do this. So this isn't like a how-to. I'm not going to go through. They have a much better how-to video than I could ever make. But basically, you know, you're measuring from the you know, shock body up to, you know, the spring collar and setting the measurements specific to your machine. So they sent me the measurements for my you know, RZR Trail S 1000, and so I'm setting these specific to that. All right, so we got the single crossover ring installed. I thought it was two. I guess it's only one. That's just my assumption because I only have 4 total and I've got 4 shocks. Even though the install instructions say you're supposed to have 2 per shock, I think they've changed it and they just never updated the instructions. Nice. So we're going to do the springs now. So we've got the these are the rear shocks. So this is the rear upper spring because this is the upper part of the shock and this is the lower one. All right, I'm going to try to not get frustrated. The install instructions for this for my application suck. So this piece right here, this aluminum piece, I'm going to assume needs to not go here, it needs to go on top here. Because they didn't provide me with 4 of these, well, excuse me, they didn't provide me with 8 of these, they only provided me with 4 of these. So if this plastic piece goes on top, look at all this room around here, which means this plastic piece has to basically, it's like a washer. So it's supporting all the tension of that spring. So there's no way that this goes on top. That plastic is not gonna be holding that spring, that's gonna crack. So this plastic needs to go down here on the bottom. Install instructions don't say a friggin' word about it. So now I gotta redo this whole thing. I gotta pull the crossover ring off because I can't get this off right now and redo it because I know that is what needs to be done. So far, I mean, you know, this kit is probably good, but the install instructions for this are just so shitty. You know, I'm sitting here wasting a lot of time just having to figure it out myself. With some common sense of how this thing should go together because they haven't taken the time to update their install instructions with whatever new parts and stuff that they have. So that's a little frustrating. So I flipped everything around, had to pull this crossover ring off. Of course, it's this tiny little, you know, hex head screws that secure it together, and so you start stripping them as soon as you take them off and put them back on. So that's lovely. I'm not usually a huge complainer. Actually, I do like to complain a lot to myself, you know. But now I've got you guys, so I'll just complain to you. So anyways, flipped it around, not the end of the world. So now I'm gonna throw these springs on. You gotta put the upper spring on first. So we'll throw this bad boy on here, just like that. And then this goes like that. And then this goes rear lower, just like that. Okay, and then one thing they make sure to say multiple times is you have to clock the springs so that the end of the springs are opposite of each other. So that is going to be about like that. Just like that. Boom, boom, pretty good, okay? So now I can compress the spring. And you know, normally if I was doing this, I would put a towel or something on here to protect the finish of the powder coat. However, if I like this and it works out well, I am gonna be pulling these off and powder coating them. So I don't really care too much about the powder coat finish right now. Okay, there's that. That's not gonna go, that's great. All right, so now we are compressing the springs. It's a little bit of a bummer because my spring compressor doesn't fit perfectly underneath the springs. So, you know, I'm not super happy about it. Safety glasses. I'm gonna throw these bad boys on. You know that means that I'm slightly worried. Again, I'm not a professional, guys. I'm just a guy who buys some tools to be able to do the job. Ooh, there it is. That was just a little nerve-wracking, only because my things didn't fit perfectly. Oh, now they're stuck, nice. All right, we are doing good. Now I gotta do that 4 times. So there we go. That's one of them installed right there. That was challenging with my spring compressor. That was not ideal. So now we're working on the fronts. We're getting the stock springs off the fronts here. Trying to get this done. It's Sunday afternoon, so I can take this over to my buddy Daniel Ridgway's house, AKA Razor Ridge, so I can test it out. Because I changed the rear control arms and then did the shock therapy spring kit all around, and so I don't want to not drive this thing and test it out beforehand before I take it to Dirtfish and do rallycross with it next Saturday. So hopefully there's not too many adjustments or anything I need to make, because it's, you know, it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort to make adjustments. All right, so these are the crossover rings. You see they've got set screws, so you got to pull these apart and then put them on the threads of the shock body here. In the manual and the install videos, it shows that there's supposed to be 2 of these per shock, and I don't see the set screws. So I think they've changed their design and they just haven't updated their install instructions. So unfortunately on the rears, I didn't know that. So I installed the rears how it showed in the manual and then realized like, oh, I don't have enough parts. They must have changed their install process and just never updated the instructions or the install video. So keep in mind, I'm pretty sure you're only supposed to put 1 of these crossovers on each shock because my kit only came with 4 total and I've got 4 shocks to do, unless I'm missing some pieces, but I don't think so. So once you get those set, put the set screws back in. Boom, just like that. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, so this one's ready to rock. Son of a gun, I am having fun. So I accidentally got my spring compressor stuck in the spring here. So these springs were much stiffer than the ones that were on the shocks to begin with, and the spring compressor I'm using is basically for BMW springs. You know, it's probably not really meant for these kinds of springs. So, you know, the space that you have here is pretty small. So I had to run to the auto parts store and I got a different spring compressor, which should allow me to finish the job and get my stuck spring compressor out of here. So, you know, it's stuck right there and I just can't get it out. So these front ones are giving me a bit of an issue. The rear ones were much easier than the fronts. I'm guessing because the front springs are stiffer than the rear. So they're harder to compress, and then, you know, they don't have very much give to them. So now I got my new spring compressor here from the auto parts store. Hopefully this second front shock goes a little bit easier than the first one did. I don't even know how you would get these springs on without marring them up. There's no room for a towel. There's no room for nothing. I mean, they're so tight. So I think no matter what, you're just gonna mar the shit out of these springs trying to get them on. It's an off-road vehicle. Springs are gonna get beat up anyways. All right, so front upper goes on first. Boom. 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 Just like that. Now you gotta compress this beast. All right. Cha-cha-cha. I'm gonna go ahead and use my new ones here. Go. So now I'm gonna try to release all this tension. All right, that's done. That's the front springs on. Kind of a pain in the butt, but I did it. I just needed multiple spring compressors. I ended up using 3 to, you know, get the spring to come all the way down. I'd say that's pretty good. So here it is. That is the Shock Therapy dual rate spring kit installed. Last thing I need to do is I just need to tighten down the shock hardware to secure the shocks to the vehicle, but otherwise that's it. You know, it wasn't too bad. I'd probably say it took me a full day to do this install, and you know, like I've said in the past, I'm definitely no professional mechanic, so you know, I'm sure a lot of you guys will do that much faster than I did. But yeah, it came out pretty well. We'll see kind of how it holds up. I have seen some stuff online about the springs rubbing the shock body. So there was quite a few people that said these Shock Therapy springs will end up rubbing through the shock body. So I guess we'll just keep an eye on that over the course of time. Okay, so I am actually having to adjust the ride height on the Shock Therapy new springs that I just put on. So I thought the ride height was pretty good, but I took the Razor to my buddy Daniel's track that he has at his house and kind of drove it around. The front looked a little high, and then it just felt a little too high. Honestly, it felt a little bit more tippy than I'm used to. I mean, it felt good. It felt fast. It just felt a little bit more unstable and a little bit tippy in the high-speed corners, and then also when ripping donuts. So I think the front is just a little bit too high. So I'm going to go ahead and adjust the front. The way that you do that is you have to pull the shocks off the machine. Pretty easy. I just left all the hardware loose to secure the shocks to the frame. So, you know, I'm going to jack the front up. I'm going to pull the wheels off. We'll pull the shocks off. You know, it'll take me 5 minutes to pull the shocks off. And then I'm going to make some adjustments to the preload collar so that I can lower the ride height of the machine. So I really want to run this machine as low as I possibly can for my use application with what I actually do with this thing. Obviously within reason, you know, when you're off-roading, you've got lots of, you know, bumps and rocks and all kinds of stuff that you need to go over, but I really try to drive this thing as fast as I possibly can. I'm getting ready to compete in some rallycross racing with it. So I'm not rock crawling with this thing, so I want it pretty much as low to the ground as possible so I can go as fast as I possibly can and just be as stable as I can get this machine. So pretty much the stock height, which is about 12.5 in the front and 12 inches in the rear, is what I'm going for. So it was about 13 in the front, and so I'm bringing it down about a full inch. But I think that's going to be the way to go with how I drive this machine. All right, guys, so that's it. That's a wrap on the Shock Therapy dual rate spring install on my Trail S 1000. It's a 2022. Went pretty well. I'm curious to see how it performs at Dirtfish. So I'm going next Saturday to compete with Northwest Rallycross over at Dirtfish and doing some rallycross racing. So make sure you guys subscribe to the channel. We got a lot of cool stuff coming up. You know, the sequential's coming for the E92. We're going to keep doing awesome stuff. I'm excited to race my Trail S here. So we're just going to keep rocking on. So hit that subscribe button, guys. Take care. Peace.